Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Marnie. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hi, Julia. Thank you so much for having us on today. We're really excited to be here.
Thank you. We are super excited.
Yes, so fun to have you. And I love when we've had other podcast hosts on the show, and it's fun to flip the script a little bit and have you guys get to be interviewed. So I'm looking forward to you sharing with our listeners everything that you guys have been doing, how you've been incorporating your, IHP certification and so on and so forth. So let's dive in, if you will. And what I would like you to do and share with our listeners first is, I think it's unique when two people pair up and they kind of team up, whether it be a podcast or a business. We've only had one other kind of coupling on this show so far. And so what I'd love you guys to do is share with the listeners how you met, how you guys got started together, and what that looked like.
Well, I guess I can start in. Stephanie and I actually both office out of a co-working space in Minneapolis called Modern Well. And it's this beautiful space it was initially intended for women only, but I think it's more open to everybody now. And we both joined a business mastermind group there. And we met in that group and we started talking, and we both discovered that we were health coaches. We had both done a different program actually before. This was pre-IHP. And so we had a lot of similarities, and we were talking, and we decided that we would team up and try leading some group coaching programs together through Modern Well. So we started doing that. And at the time, then I think I was already in IHP, right, Stephanie? I think
you joined right away. Like you were one of the first.
I was in the first class at IHP. And I told her about it. And then she joined pretty soon after that. So anyway, we started doing group coaching programs together. We discovered we had a ton of similarities. Like we're both Aries, and we both have 3 kids, and we've done a lot of the same travel, and we both lived abroad. And there was just kind of went on and on and on. And we just hit it off. And so that's how we got started together.
Oh, that's awesome. So it just was by chance that you guys were at this same kind of business setting. Wow. Stephanie, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think it was just, all serendipitous. We were at the right place at the right time together. It was meant to be. And then, we did do group coaching, and we did a lot of workshops too. And we still do some workshops as well. But, it was Marnie who approached me and said, "Hey, what are your thoughts on launching a podcast?" And it's funny because we were both podcast obsessed, and she would always share podcasts that she listened to with me that she really liked, and I would do the same. And I had never really thought about it. I kind of thought in the back of my head, oh, maybe that's something I would do years down the road, but just from a capacity standpoint, couldn't even fathom doing that by myself. Just again, mom, 3 kids, a lot of things going on in our lives. And I was like, this could be really cool. And so we just started talking and brainstorming, and thankfully being at Modern Well, this amazing women's co-working space, there were a couple other women who were also podcasters, and they really were so generous with their time and their experience and the best practices. And they really helped us, figure out what we need to do. And that's how the Art of Living Well podcast was born. Literally, I think we were brainstorming names for the podcast sitting right there in that co-working space.
Yeah. And I'll just add to that. And Dr. Cabral was so inspiring to me. That's really how the idea kind of came into my head is, listening to his podcast so much, and how he would talk about kind of how he started and how he just plugged in the microphone and just kind of started talking. And I was like, if anybody can do this. And so it took away some of that fear around it.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, and the truth is what else is there left to do besides plug in the microphone and start talking? Everybody,
right.
We tend to overcomplicate things and think that there needs to be this grand plan and we need to execute everything perfectly. But the truth is that's really all you need is you need to have something to say and a microphone and even just one person to listen to, but maybe not anybody. Maybe you just start talking and eventually someone starts listening. So you're right. It's such a good point. So to that point, can you kind of share with our listeners what you guys are currently doing? So sharing the podcast, what else you're doing in kind of like the coaching space. So whoever wants to start with giving us what you guys do on a daily basis in the health and wellness field.
Sure, I can go. So with the podcast, I mean, we record episodes every week. Usually we always have one recording, or we book a lot of discovery calls. We're to the point now in our podcast, which is great, that we have people reaching out to us, multiple times per week, asking to be on our show. So we book discovery calls with them just to kind of see if they're a good fit before we actually have them on, if we don't know of them in advance. And, with the podcast, it's, yes, you just talk into a mic and have a conversation, but then there's obviously editing and the show notes and the graphics and the social media. And, we do a newsletter that we try to send out maybe monthly. So there is quite a bit behind the scenes. We're really lucky. We've actually had a college intern the last couple summers, and really probably most of the last year and a half or so, which has been great because they, been able to help a lot with, doing graphics and using those creative graphic design skills that I would just say I speak for myself, I don't necessarily have. So that's kind of, from the podcast standpoint, but we're also really growing the community. And so we've done community programs like this summer and last summer, Marnie and I co-hosted a yoga and crafted wine event that was in person. And that was just a way to gather and create community, especially with people wanting to be outdoors more. And we just love being outside ourselves. Marnie and I are both certified certified yoga instructors as well. And then Marnie, you can pick up. I don't want to be the only one talking here.
So we do group detox programs. And then we also do these, quarterly coaching programs where 30 days to thrive, or, thrive and not just survive. They have different names depending on the season we're in and kind of where we're at the given time of year. But we do these group programs, which is really building community. And we have found that a lot of our clients really like the group space where they can learn from one another. And we have, more of that connection, and you hear, this person's having this problem, and then that person can relate to it, or they're sharing a recipe, or it's just that community piece, especially during COVID. And Stephanie and I were doing this quite a bit in person before COVID, and we kind of moved everything online. And it almost seems like more people have joined because it's easier to get on a Zoom call than it is to physically get to a space and commit in that sense. So we're doing that. And then Stephanie and I both have our individual coaching practices as well, where we see one-on-one clients. And she has a business, Stephanie May Potter, and I have a business, Zenful Life Coaching. So then for the one-on-one clients, we do that completely separate.
And it's nice because what we end up finding is some of our one-on-one clients, either current or former, then end up joining the quarterly liver detoxes that we run, or the group coaching program, because they know, yes, maybe they have a good foundation now and they don't need the one-on-one anymore, but we all get off track, right? That's why we do the quarterly liver detox. We all need a reset every once in a while. And so I think us providing that, it's just a nice program for people to be able to join with others. And like Marnie said, have that community. And, we incorporate quite a bit of what we learned in IHP, especially level 1. And when you go through the de-stress protocol. And so it's really nice to be able to talk about toxins and stress and sleep and rest and, supplements and all the great knowledge that we learned through Dr. Cabral. And so that's been really fun. And since we have the same background, we're already in sync with that.
Yeah. And it can be so easy to forget that even though it's second nature to us, all those simple things like toxins and the water you're drinking and the air you're breathing, it seems so simple, but to people that it's not what they learned, it's not really that simple. And you can just do so much by helping people in a community talk about the foundations of health, and they feel like they're a part of something. Now there's a little bit of accountability, but it's motivational to be with a bunch of other women who are working on the same thing you're working on and have the same mindset. And you can just reach more people and help more people and have more of a success in that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's cool because even like with our podcast, I've told Stephanie this, like sometimes I'm walking down the street in my neighborhood and a neighbor will stop me and be like, oh my gosh, I listened to your podcast and I didn't know you did that. Or I loved learning about, such and such, whatever the topic is. And it's like the fact that we're able to touch people in those ways. I think the podcast I just love it because it, you can't put a limit on how far it can go, which is great.
Yes. Yeah. And you never know who's listening too. And
right.
So you like always put your best foot forward, giving as much information. And yeah, it's like you said, the sky's the limit for kind of who you can reach and how. So to that point, I would love, because I'm sure there's people, coaches or aspiring coaches listening that would think, you know what, podcasting is something I'd really like to get into. So whether it's that they want to start it alone or whether they want to do something with somebody else, can you guys kind of tell us a little bit about how you got started? I know you plugged in the microphone and started talking, but other than that, other details that you found to be important or inspirational?
For me, well, I think for both of us, we really had a couple mentors that were really helpful. These women that were just willing to, give us their method, basically, how they schedule interviews, what processes they use, how they, what email goes out to the guest outlining, this is what you need to do so you're prepared for the Zoom call, show notes, like all of that. So we had some really good mentors that walked us through that. And that was super helpful and inspiring and motivating, I would say. So I think if you can find someone to do that for you, that's great. I think people are very willing to help others. And then also just having a partner is super helpful too, because, instead of doing 100% of the work, we're doing 50% of the work.
Yeah. Really, and I think there's a great Facebook group called She Podcast. And it's all women who are podcasters or want to be podcasters. And you post a question there and you get like 15 responses in like 3 hours, I think, or you can search. So it's just a great resource for anyone who's thinking about podcasting. And I remember there's another local health coach who also has a podcast. I remember meeting with her and asking her questions. And, she was like, the only regret I have is not doing it sooner. So I just think you have to just rip the Band-Aid off in those first couple of episodes. Everyone says, you're not going to love them. You have to start somewhere. And we've improved just the flow and our confidence with speaking and asking questions and really listening to our guests, because at the end of the day, you can have all the questions scripted out. And if you're only focused on answering those questions, you're going to miss some really important and powerful message that your guest wants to communicate when you're not really listening and kind of unpacking what they have to say. So it's just been a cool experience. And I feel like we've both really gained a lot professionally from it and personally. I mean, the number of interesting guests and experts and specialists out there that I didn't even know existed or what they were, that I have now in my toolbox to share with other clients and friends and use myself. I mean, the number of guests that I've purchased stuff with or services with, I mean, I can't even count it on one hand. So
yes. Yeah.
It's been an amazing experience. Yeah.
Yes. And it creates almost a community of like professionals in our industry too. Like you're able to feel like you're connected. Like the three of us are connected now. I've made lifelong friends from people that I've interviewed that I still talk to weekly. It's a way where you can now create a community of, mentors or people that are podcasting or doing this health and wellness space. It's a way for us to then have community to then share with our people that we're teaching. It really is a way to have it come full circle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think
one nice.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, a lot of times we share resources with clients or friends, and it's nice instead of always sharing someone else's podcast episode, we can also share our own. So this is like our own resource, not just sharing someone else's information, which I think just helps elevate our the expertise and how people perceive us as integrative health practitioners.
Of course. Yes. And one other thing that I wanted to highlight, because I feel it's so important. We talk about it in most of my episodes where I ask how someone started something and how do they do it. And it's the mentorship, right? Like Dr. Cabral is one of those. He always says, like, don't reinvent the wheel. He actually gives IHPs permission to copy all his stuff. He's like, this is what has worked for me. Feel free to take it. And it's so important to hire somebody who's done it, or not hire somebody, but just simply reach out and network with somebody who's done it. They've done it well. They can help build your confidence, answer your questions, and then you can be, a mentor to somebody else someday. You pay it forward in that way. And chances are the people that mentored you, someone mentored them. And they thought to themselves, I'm going to do this for somebody else because it was so beneficial when someone did it for me.
Yes.
I couldn't agree more. It's funny. I had someone reach out to me from Instagram who I don't know who they are and talk to me about IHP. And I had a call with her yesterday because she's interested in doing the program. And there's just all these connections that you make and through social media and through the podcast. And it's nice to be able to pay it forward.
Yes. Yeah. And being able to trust in somebody else's success and them helping you. And then, you can do it forward. So that's great. So as far as the group, so we talked about the podcast. I'd love to kind of chat a little bit about how you structure groups, because we talked about how, and I think, Marnie, to your point, during COVID, I think community is like 15 times more important now, right? Even if, say the, virus stuff, it blows over and we're not dealing with any of that anymore. I think life has changed in a pretty substantial way where companies have learned that they can have employees work from home. And I think there's a lot of in-person stuff that used to happen in our lives that simply no longer happen, right? And so being able to at least connect virtually with a community of people who have similar goals in mind is so important and impactful. So I'm curious how you guys, so again, if a coach is listening and they're like, I wonder how they structure their group stuff, or how do they advertise it? How do you get people to be a part of it? Could you guys shed a little light on that process?
Yeah. So in terms of like advertising, we, have our social media followings. And so we advertise it, on Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, neighborhood sites, like just all across those social media outlets. We have a newsletter of subscribers that we are slowly building. And then we also have our podcast, which is another great way to advertise so that, we can put in a little blip at the beginning of the episode saying, oh, by the way, we have this 30-day program coming up and we'd love for you to join us. And here are the details. And for more information, go to, this website or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that, obviously gets the word out a lot. And then in terms of the way we structure the program, we don't do it exactly the same every time, but, let's say it's a 4 or 5 week program. Typically we'll have like a workbook that we've created that has a lot of, our own information that we've put together from our knowledge. And, we kind of break it out into the weeks into topics. And there's work that they have to do. And then there's things that we kind of lead them toward, I guess, based on the topic. And then we do, a weekly call where it's a face-to-face Zoom group call. Mm-hmm. And, we put together recipe books each week for the people in the group. What am I missing? And we've put in, since we're both like yoga teachers and I'm certified in meditation as well, we've put in some meditations for them to use. Sometimes we've had guest yoga teachers and we'll put in like a little class. So they kind of have this whole program that they have access to. Okay. Am I forgetting anything, Stephanie?
No, those are the highlights. And what we've done is seasonally, like the upcoming program we have, which is Thrive, Not Just Survive during the holiday seasons. We launched it last year and it was focused like early to mid-November to mid-December. And it's really, we know that can be a stressful time for people with holidays, but also that's when, depending on if we're still in this pandemic or not at that point, there's more social gatherings and it's harder for people to really commit to their priorities and their health goals while still having fun and enjoying themselves. So that one's tailored a bit around those seasonal sort of, challenges, if you will. And then we had one over the summer that was all for women. And it was during the summer. And really, not everyone, some of them were moms, and prioritizing your health during the summer, which is also a fun and social time of year, but not getting completely off track. And we kept it, each week there was a separate topic, like Marnie mentioned. And it's just, they have access to us. At the end of the day, we have a chat feature and they can connect with Marnie and I anytime over the course of the program. So it's, basically they can get some one-on-one, small one-on-one coaching, if you will, through that chat as well.
Okay.
And then it's a way for them to learn about other things that we offered individually too.
Okay. And those 30 days, those 30-day programs are different than what you do with like quarterly detoxes. And then we'll run like quarterly detox groups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're busy.
Yeah.
So, and the 30-day groups, that would be like a community of women or men and women. And what do you find is, I want to word it, so the most benefit to the client when it comes to the 30-day? We've talked obviously about community, but what do you feel like is there a different approach or a different outcome that happens with, a 30-day program like that versus one-on-one coaching?
Stephanie can answer too, but from my opinion, I think accountability is really key. I think people really thrive more when they have that accountability. And when you have the group and the coach environment, there's a lot of people that you're trying to hold you're holding yourself accountable to the group. So I think that's huge. I also think people still struggle, even if they know all the right things to eat. They struggle with meal planning and prep. And I think we give a lot of support weekly in this program in that area. And I think people tend to thrive more with that support.
Okay. Yeah. How about you, Stephanie?
I would agree completely with accountability. I think where it differs from one-on-one, and there obviously when we do these weekly Zooms, people can ask us one-on-one questions, but there's going to be less of the probing and asking those like high mileage questions, those open-ended questions to kind of peel back some of the layers. And so many of people's challenges with, creating sustainable, healthy habits, the things that they know they should be doing, moving their body and stress reduction and sleep and meditation and some of those harder things. I think that's where you really benefit more from the one-on-one coaching, because you can't really do that in the group coaching program. But it's more, we're probably being a little bit more of like an educator than you would maybe even in a one-on-one, because it's like a topic each week. And so people can ask us any questions, but we are sort of driving the theme of the week versus in a one-on-one, it's really it's 100% client focused and they're leading the session.
Of course. Yeah. And the truth is some people need that and some people benefit more from, and I would say, I recently was looking into doing something and they're like, well, we have two options. You can do like group and you can do one-on-one. And I'm a total introvert and I would always rather it just be one-on-one. I'm not like a social group. And it was interesting because the person said, it might be something that actually you need. Like if you, were kind of pushed into a group setting, you might learn something about yourself. So each of them probably has their strengths. Each of them probably has, something that it's missing, but the point is that both of them can be super beneficial to different types of people.
Well, and I totally agree with both of you. And I'll add to that. Stephanie and I each have a private client who joined our group programs. And I think that they have done that because, like Stephanie said, in the one-on-one coaching, you're taking a deep dive into what you need personally, but you are getting different things out of that group environment. And some people just need that community piece because right now they're not getting it. And the group programs are, more affordable. Obviously, it's not the same as what you pay in a one-on-one coaching program. So for someone that A, can't afford to do the one-on-one, it's great. But B, if you can afford it, doing both does give you different things. You're not getting the same thing from each program. So we have had clients, both of us, that have done both.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Yeah, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can oftentimes be beneficial to have both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So, yeah, go ahead, Stephanie.
No, you go ahead, Julia.
So I was going to switch gears just a little bit because I would be interested, and I'm sure maybe some of our listeners would be too. Was there any major obstacles or challenges to overcome when either, and maybe you guys have been doing this for a while, but my guess is maybe you were doing something else and you transitioned and now you're doing coaching and podcasting and all of this. Was there a piece where you transitioned, or maybe it was something about coming together that had obstacles or challenges, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, I can go. I always tell people I'm a recovering CPA, and I spent 18 years in the corporate world, and that's kind of what led me on this path and journey. Because it was very much work hard, play hard. So the stress and all that, kind of built up over the course of time and developing unhealthy habits. But given my background, and I didn't have an education in anything health or nutrition related or journalism or anything like that, speaking in front of people, I mean, I used to get so sweaty and stressed having to talk in like a board meeting or anything, right? So this has been outside of my comfort zone for sure. I didn't have a coaching background or anything like that, but it was always something, health was always something I was interested in, but wasn't educated in necessarily. So for me, like starting my own business, becoming an entrepreneur, being in an environment where I was by myself up until working with Marnie, I was really working solo for a while to try to start my own business. And talking about myself was not something that or promoting my own business or anything like that was not something I was comfortable with. And really lacked confidence in that area. And then marketing too. It's still something that I struggle with, because you're not just selling a product, it's not like I'm selling, someone else's mug. As a salesperson, you're selling yourself. And if someone, unsubscribes from your newsletter or says, no, they don't want to do a program, you could take that very personally. So I've developed a lot, you develop thick skin, right? And you just recognize that it's not me, it's the other person, and whatever they're going through. So that has been a big learning and challenge, and it continues to evolve. It's not something that just sort of goes away, but it's made me put myself out there in ways that I never would have imagined and share information with people, share personal information. I'm to the point now I'm comfortable doing that because it may help someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Marnie, I'll let you share and then I'll chime in.
So I would say, a lot of the same. I've had a lot of similar experiences to what Stephanie is saying. Like I have grown so much from doing this. And I've been an entrepreneur for many years. I actually have a different business, a promotional products business that I've had for a long time. And my initial plan was to slowly transition out of that business because I wasn't feeling passionate about it, and kind of grow into the health coaching and do that full time. And what I found happened for me is that I was becoming so fulfilled and passionate and excited about everything I was doing with the health coaching that my other business started to thrive in a way that it never had before. And I decided to keep them both. So I'm still doing this other business also. But I think I've grown so much as a person through doing this work myself, helping others through the work, breaking through my own fears. Like Stephanie said, public speaking was a huge fear of mine. Putting myself out there, feeling comfortable in my own skin, like all of those things. This has helped me through all of those things. And of course, by no means am I like, okay, I've arrived. Like, I'm constantly learning and growing and trying to help other people do the same. So I would say in terms of the transition, I think as long as you have passion and drive, it works. It just does. It works out. You have to kind of just plow through that fear, that little voice that says, oh, are you good enough? Can you do this? Like I used to think to myself, who am I? Like, why am I all of a sudden an expert? Just because I've been through a program, now I can lead other people. But you have to just kind of plow through that and start and, turn that voice off.
Yes. And I think what Marnie said about having a passion is really like tuning in and really listening to yourself, that inner voice about what excites you. because finally, after like not having been passionate about my career for 18 years, and it's funny, we were just having this conversation with my 3 children last night at dinner about doing something. Like my oldest is going to be looking at colleges. And we were talking about like finding a career, and do you find a career that you're passionate about or one that's going to pay the bills in a major, and that sort of conversation. But I think once you find something that you're passionate about, it really truly doesn't seem like work. And so even those challenges that we talked about, especially when it comes to like marketing and putting yourself out there, you just do it because you know that you have something to offer and share. And that's really what's important, is helping others and being of service to others.
Yes. Yeah. And the passion is what kind of lights enough fire inside of you to then do, Marnie, but plow through the fear of like, this is when you believe that this is what you're meant to do. This is the purpose that you were kind of put here. This is your mission. This is your message, all of that. You're able to push fear aside versus standing up and talking in front of a bunch of board members about something that you're like, oh, I hate this topic. I don't, there's a whole different, feeling that's attached to it. And, I posted something to my Instagram not that long ago. It was a meme. I'm probably going to butcher it now, but it was something about like, not waiting for the path to appear before you start walking, but once you start walking, the path appears. Like if you just take one next step and you continue to then like see, okay, I just did that. Wow. Now I'm going to try this. And we truly grow when we're put in uncomfortable, fearful, unfamiliar circumstances, right? I mean, nobody grows in their comfort zone. We know that as 3 coaches. And so being able to push ourselves, we show up as better versions to help others. And so I think it's so important.
Yes, I agree.
All right. So what I would love for you guys to do now, because we've kind of touched upon, everything that you're doing, but I think maybe if listeners are hearing all of this, they'll probably want it all in one concise message. So I would love for you guys to give us the podcast name. So your podcast, these programs that you run, what they're called, your website, where kind of can people find more, and kind of dive a little bit deeper. So whoever wants to give me those details.
Well, our podcast is the Art of Living Well podcast. And you can find it on any medium that you would listen to podcasts on, pretty much, including our website, which is theartoflivingwell.us. So those
Instagram.
Go ahead.
Nope. Our Instagram, we're the Art of Living _well. And then we also have Facebook, the Art of Living Well podcast. We have a private Facebook group, so you can join that private Facebook group. We have a newsletter you can subscribe to. We're not going to spam you, but we send out periodic emails, especially when we're running programs, so that you're the first to hear about them.
And we are, in terms of the names of our programs, like they're all on our website and on Instagram and everywhere. Like we have a link tree on our Instagram. So if you just hit the little link, it'll take you to the programs that we have going, and the names change. So we don't always use the same name for each program that we offer.
Perfect. For anyone who's interested in our next program, I think that will launch probably about a month or so after this episode drops. It's going to be Thrive, Not Just Survive during the holidays, and it'll be a 5-week program. It'll start on November 8th, and that will all be linked up here. But you can, like Marnie said, check out our website or Instagram for more information, message us, email us, however you want to get in touch.
And we'd love to have you listen to our podcast.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
And one of our first interviews, or the first 6 months, was Dr. Cabral himself. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, exciting. Okay, good. So people can go back and listen to previous ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for both being here on the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast. It's always fun when it's more than one, and I think we get double the knowledge and double the wisdom. So thank you so much for both being here.
Thank you so much, Julia. It's been really fun.
Really, it's been fun to be in the hot seat, right, Marnie?
Absolutely.
Yes, good. Thanch you so much, and we'll be in touch soon.
Okay.
Sounds good. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.